You ready?
Like, she was literally a child crushed, and I felt so
bird.
sad for her. But
You know, just it was just like scene. After I was like, it was just like on some. We about to go to war. That's where I was. I'm gonna get this started, y'all. Welcome to DTL Poetic Vibez Podcast. It's your girl Trish. I got most of the squad in here. We got Mo Flows. You got D in the building.
hey, what's up?
And we have our lovely guest. Got our lovely guest Charles Red Lion in the building for the first time on DTL Poetic Vibez. What's up, everybody?
Good, man. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely.
So, Charles, let's do a whole introduction because I know most of the DTL team has not met you in person. Some of us have seen you perform. I know all of us seen you on social media. And we're going to dive into a little bit more of the things there. But what I will say is, give me a second, guys, so if I don't lose my train of thought. Oh, okay, sweetie. Bye-bye. Most of all of us have seen you all over social media. Your work definitely stands out. Thank you for your art as a poet. So tell the world a little bit about who Red Lion is.
Okay.
Underneath Charles.
Cool, man. I would say that Red Lion and Charles are the exact same person. Red Lion is just me. Well, the rest of me whenever I wake up. I would say I've been doing poetry or spoken word for about 13 years, going on 14 now. I've been doing it. I mean, I started doing poetry while I was like 18, 19, coming out of high school and everything. I've been, I've had, just been doing poetry kind of all over the place at this point. Been to New York, been to Los Angeles, been to Philly, and we planning trips. Actually, I'm going to be back in Philly in March. So that's going to be a fun time. I've had really beautiful opportunities in poetry. I've opened up for the PIA tour, which is the Poets in Autumn tour. Did that back in 2017. I've opened up for Brandon Leak, and who is the young man who won America's Got Talent a few years ago. And just things here and there, been on projects and everything. But, that's a brief synopsis.
Shout out to Brandon Leak, dear friend of ours.
Yeah.
We love Brandon.
Good people.
Amazing person. Very good person.
Are you a full-time poet? Is this what you do full-time?
We are in the process of becoming full-time. So okay. I still have 9 to 5 and everything like that. But it recently in the past, I'd say maybe 2-3 years, we've been making this slow transition into like doing poetry full-time. But, it's just about finding that pocket and finding out what's going to be consistent and how it's going to, just work. So, yeah.
Yeah. Which is tough in poetry, right? Figuring out what can you do that's going to be consistent over the long term.
Right.
Yeah. So,
absolutely.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Trish. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it's definitely it has its challenges. It has its ups and downs when it comes to just being full time in a creative space. We've been through it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been definitely thinking about trying to go full time, but it you have to, it takes some thorough planning.
Right.
And you have to be, I was talking to somebody not too long ago, a couple of days ago, as a matter of fact. I was I was doing a live, and the question was, where do you see poetry in the next, 10 years or something like that? Or where would you like to see poetry go? Where would you like to see poetry go? And what I said was, to your point, Charles, was, I would like to see poets be able to do it full time, but that requires us, as creatives, to learn the business side.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes we rely on our talent, and there's so many of us with talent, and that's great, but we have to be business minded. We have to become business people as well. in that space. So I will extend that question to you, Charles. Where would you like to see poetry, not just for yourself as a whole? Where would you like to see poetry go, within the next 10, 20 years? What would you like to see? Where would you like to see it go?
Well, poetry, as we know, is, I like to call poetry like the mother art form, because a lot of art is birthed from poetry. Movies do monologues all the time. Monologue is a style of poetry. Every genre of music has been birthed out of the creative writing part of poetry. You know what I'm saying? We don't get music like we have it without writers, people who understand how to write good songs and lyrics and everything. And I think even communication, public speakers utilize different devices in speaking. So poetry in and of itself is actually planted in just about every single avenue of even the business world. But poetry purely, and I've seen like the slow progress of poetry like going up. And I think in the next 10, 20 years, we will see more visually, we'll be able to see poets more consistently. We're already seeing them. We just got the Grammy category for us and everything like that.
Correct.
We've seen the Amanda Gormans and the Brandon Leaks and, Poetry Me Please, taking over the Apollo. We've seen like all these different poets, organizations and collectives making strides forward and everything. But to your point, Mo, I think that it is going to take understanding the business side and how poetry in and of itself can be in the business. I will say that poets by nature, or at least just my observation of most poets, we're really giving a lot of times. So when it comes to business, it's very difficult for people who are more artistically inclined to kind of like delve into that side and not be taken advantage of. That's happened to me a couple of times. I don't want to tell on myself. I'll tell on myself. So BET was doing College Hill here in Houston at TSU. And there's an episode of College Hill. If you look at it, it's the first celebrity edition where where the celebrities are actually in an African literature class and they're actually learning poetry. And I actually taught that class. I actually got an opportunity to, kind of help that particular thing. And I did about 3 days of filming.
Oh, wow.
So I had to sign contracts, all that stuff, right?
Right.
And we finally get to the actual, like, hey, they're premiering the show. And I'm just like, cool, man, where we at? You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, man, I know I'm gonna get like 2 seconds, man, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What we doing? You know what I'm saying? Am I in the no credits? That's crazy.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
And that's no knock on BET, right? Because it's a business. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But had I understood at least that particular realm of it a little bit more, I probably would have prepped myself a little bit differently, at least from a business aspect, right? So, you know what I'm saying? But hey, it happened. I learned a lot. During that time. And I think that failure is just falling forward. So, hey, didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. That's cool, man. We just gonna keep going. But
so technically it basically came off as you're an extra in a movie with no credit.
In a nutshell, yeah. But on scene, I was in there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's typically what happens. That typically is what happens.
Sis. You understand?
Yeah.
I was in that thing. I was like,
oh, with a vision. With a voice.
You're like, this BET, I'm gonna do this for us.
You know what I'm saying? That's what it was.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh man, they over here crying. I made them, man. Listen, okay, we in there.
Hold on now. You made them cry. You still ain't getting no credit.
Listen, let me tell you what they did. So there was another young man. He was a student there at TSU. He did a poem. So you will see a scene on that show where Big Frida's one of the celebrities, and Big Frida, tears up. While we were filming that, she actually teared up on the poem that I did. But they used the young man who was a student.
Oh
No
wow!
All right,
way.
now you gotta drop that link to me. I gotta see
Yeah,
it.
that's
And
I
they-
gotta
crazy.
see it now.
and they actually use the poem that he did, which listen, it's a business. I get
Yeah,
it. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
But I was like, you know what? Okay,
yeah,
it is
yeah,
what it is. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second
okay,
to that it's a business.
Mhm.
Mm-mm. As a business owner, we're gonna get down to it because Mo and D know what I'm about to say. As a business owner, that is, and literally, I'm so glad you use as an example to explain to us what you experience in the aspect of being oblivious to that.
Mhm.
Okay, that literally is a pure example of being taken advantage of.
Mhm.
Never, I don't ever want any artist to think because they have little to no knowledge of that side to say, oh, it's a business. That's how business things, because you have little to no knowledge to that.
Mhm.
Business owners know how and when to get away with stuff, take
Mhm.
advantage because of what little information is provided. So it
Mhm.
really truly depends on who you're working with. No matter how big the corporation is, no matter how small the industry is, or the business itself is, you really just have to pay attention to your black and white, your legalities, and who you're actually dealing with the owner. Is the owner being very thoroughly honest with you when it comes to what they are providing for you as the artist, outside of what you know when it comes to business? And if they're not, and you see the finesse train coming down the line and you just happen to get on it, then you know you've been screwed over. And that right there is where I would tell you, as you tell this story moving forward, I don't ever want you to say again, that's just how a business is.
Yes, Mother Trish. I don't want to get whooped no more. So I learned. Okay, just love me. Okay, I learned. God.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you learning from your mistakes.
That's good stuff.
But no, that's really serious. It's like, as a business owner, like my mother would always say to me, even to this day, name a business that is not suffered any challenges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just because we suffer challenges does not mean it is okay to walk over others because of our challenges. Take accountability for the things that you do as a business owner when it comes to your mistakes. Own up to it, acknowledge it. If you got to apologize for it, then that's okay. But you don't ever use that to your advantage. That's just period, point blank. Yeah, as business owners, we take the time to figure out what it means to be a business owner, how you're going to move forward, how you're going to navigate running this business in longevity. You're going to come across your hurdles. And it is a big, there is a huge lack of knowledge when it comes to the poets specifically in the creative community, of not knowing that side. And instead of us just taking advantage of that, we're not educating you guys either.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of us are business owners, but we're also poets at the same time. So why can't I share some of my knowledge with you so you understand when you go out to another performance, you ain't getting screwed over when that black and white hit that table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just share pay it forward.
Yeah.
If it is a situation where it's a curator that you're close with, or somebody that you know that is a business owner, and you got a deal coming on the table, and it's like, hold on now, let me talk to my colleagues for a second. As a business owner, how would you approach this? There's no reason why I can't say, you know what, Charles, let's talk about this for a second. Even without even diving into whatever it is they offered you, does it make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey Trish, unfortunately, every business owner doesn't think like you. A lot of business owners, they about that bottom dollar,
Right.
and they just try and get that
temporary bag, baby.
Yeah, and they try and save a buck where they can save a buck and make one where they can make one. You know what I mean? So
That, or they forget what their passion was. Like, they forgot who they were before they started making that dime. So, of course, they're not going to pay anything for it if they forgot where they was to get where they're at.
Yeah. Or they just don't care, right? There's some people that they just want that money. They don't care one way. And it's unfortunate, but it's true. Like some people, they know where they came from. They just don't care. They just want that bottom dollar. But hey, I got one more question for you. That I wanted before we dive into what Trish want to dive into. How would you how would you describe your poetry? How would you describe yourself as a poet? You know, I don't want to use the word in comparison to other poets, but what makes Red Lion Red Lion?
Oh, I think, and it's difficult because I think that most of us inherently have the same thing. I think maybe I'm a little bit more aware of what I have than most poets do. And it's the ability to seize a heart. I think that a lot of us, right, we write poems that are relatable. And we would write poems based off of either testimonials, experiences, everything. With me, I really try my best to, whenever I'm presenting a poem, I was talking to this about performance with another young guy. It doesn't matter if there's 100 people in the room. I'm going to do the poem as if there is one person who I need to save. So every time I do a poem, I'm going to present this poem like somebody's life is on the line. And even if there are 1,000 people in front of me, I'm going to like not pretend, but I'm going to be speaking to one person who needs to be saved at that moment in time. Because if I can just at least save one person, which is why my poetry comes off the way that it does. So that's why, like, it can encompass the entire room, but my focus is like, man, who needs to hear what I have to say, and how do I get it to them in the most effective way that I possibly can?
Yeah.
So that's how my performance. That's how, like, I dictate how I perform a poem.
That's beautiful, man. I like that. That's good stuff.
I truly pray that you never lose that. Don't ever, because a lot of poets, and we're gonna dive into it because y'all know I'm about to dive deep, are losing it. Are losing it. It is the number one thing, and I've heard several artists that I could name that have said to me the same exact thing that you have said just now, that if they can touch one life, they've done their job. And you guys are literally the brightest in the room because of that, because of not losing sight of what you do and why you have the gift that you have as you utilize the words in that capacity. Because a lot of people, when you aren't paying attention to your purpose, you lose sight of who you are as a poet. If that makes sense.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
I think some people try some people and I think this is artists in general, they try to, and this is something that I'm glad when you answered your question, Charles, in the beginning, you said that, you know, who is Red Lion? You said, you know, we're one and the same. We're the same person. It's just when I wake up, you know, whatever. So, and I like that because I think some people actually have, they present themselves as I'm this person, but then I'm my poet. I'm a poet person who's different than the person that I am. And for me, it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense, right? If you're a poet, from my perspective, that you should be showing us who you are as a person through your poetry.
Correct.
And not have like this alter ego.
Agreed.
And I feel like some people, some artists portray themselves as having this alter ego as a poet. And I understand sometimes that you're doing that in a poem for a particular poem, right? But just overall, and I'm not knocking anybody that thinks that way. I just never understood that concept because I always felt like, well, if your poetry is coming from your heart, how is this your alter ego? I don't get that. I never understood that.
I think for a lot of people, whenever you're not mature in the art form, you will use the art form as a mask. And because you use the art form as a mask, this means that I can encompass whoever I want to be. We see actors do it all the time, right? And man, I know that, just for lack of example, right? It's like, man, I know I don't really be going and shooting up no place, but I'm gonna pretend like, you know what I'm saying? I know what a 9mm is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm gonna pretend like I know what this is. I don't, like, you know what I'm saying? Side note am I like restricted? Can you know what I'm saying? Is there like profanity on this or no or anything like that?
No, you're good.
No,
All clearance.
No, you say you say what you want.
Okay, cool. So like if I say like I'm going out and I'm having sex with, you know, this person, and I'm a virgin or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't know that I don't know what I'm doing. But but with poetry, because it's such an effective mask, I'm going to pretend like I know exactly what I'm doing, right? Because I unselfconsciously want you to accept me. And I unsubconsciously want to be perceived as somebody who is either powerful or somebody, you know what I'm saying, who can fit into the room. And that's what happens a lot of times, I think, when people use the art form as just a means to belong to something, right? And I think to an extent we all may do that every now and again. But once you get mature and once you realize, you know what, I'm actually not that. And it's actually okay for me to like anime and be a gamer, or you know what I'm saying, or you know, do what I want to do. She caught the vision.
Because women for so long were told that it was weird and it was like not normal for women to be involved in it. And now everybody thinks, oh my God, you're a girl and you like this stuff. It's
amazing. Wait, for women to like what?
Anime and gaming.
Man.
Look, I've been to Comic-Con. I've seen a women.
I thought you were talking about poetry. I was like, what?
No, he knew what I was talking about. I knew what he was talking about.
Okay. Y'all had the inside going on there. See, I don't know anything about anime, you know.
Yeah,
I don't know anything about anime.
Don't make me school you, bro.
I don't got nothing against it. I just don't, you know, it's just never been my thing. You know what I mean?
You ain't find the right ones. That's why.
That's the problem.
Probably not.
Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. What else you need to watch? You need to watch Death Note. You need to watch Bleach. All the Naruto.
Naruto, Baruto.
You understand what I'm saying? The Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yu Yu Hakusho. They just remade Rama 1/2 on Netflix, which I'm disappointed about that because that's an original classic Japanese.
Right.
Yeah, I remember you was telling me about that. So hold on, before we, because I'm trying to ask my question before Trish gets started. I got one more.
I'm trying to charge my phone.
Okay, good. Oh, that iPhone, right? So, but this one more.
Hey yo.
All right, so don't say nothing when my 16 pop out and record full film. I don't want to hear nothing from you.
Hey, you know who made the 16 camera though?
Chill. I love seeing something. Let's not do it.
All she heard was "Shalom."
Can I go through?
But no. So, I got a good question for you. So, Red Lion, what is that? What does that mean? Where did that come from? What's the story behind that?
Oh no.
You stole my question.
Oops. If you didn't have to stop to charge your phone.
Oh boy. Okay. All right. I can be honest on here. Okay. I know that just to preface, I know that everybody has a different spiritual walk, right? So it would be irresponsible of me to assume that everybody is going to understand what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway because you asked and I have to be honest with you. So I was in the middle of a prayer service, right? And I am not the kind of guy who sees visions, spiritual things. I'm not the kind of guy who sees angels, demons, although I do believe that those people exist. And I do believe that, you know what I'm saying, there is a spiritual realm that operates directly parallel to ours. So in the middle of this prayer service, I began to see these lions in the room while the intercessors were praying. Each of these lions was on fire, and each of the fires was a different color. The lion that came and sat in front of me was a lion that was engulfed in red flames. So I didn't take up the name initially. We had a conference that we were doing. So I did, I was performing a poem at this conference and everything. And I was going under another name that I will not disclose to anybody. It will be buried. And
he said, bury it 6 feet deep.
It will die. It will die. I will take that name into my grave and nobody will ever know that name again. And a couple, like maybe a year and a half later, whenever I decided, you know what, I need to like actually do more with this poetry thing, but I need to figure out what is the best way to market myself. And my regular name is Charles Ray Patton II, and that's just not, you know what I'm saying? It don't hit the same whenever you get called to the stage. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It's like you could say
the whole government with a birth certificate, like,
you know what I'm saying, bro? I'm just like, man, what do I do? You know what I'm saying? So I need something that's short, concise, but like kind of encapsulates what I do. You know what I'm saying? And the thing that came to my head was the vision that I had during that prayer was like, okay, but Charles, what does it mean though? Because it's going to be really weird if you just be red line and it doesn't like mean anything. And I prayed about it. Red is the color of warfare, and it's also the color of passion. Lions symbolize kingship. They also symbolize war in certain cultures. They also symbolize generals. So when you combine red and lion together, you can translate it as the king that wars or the king who is passionate. And you can like mix and match that, but I can't, obviously the king that wars is also not a very good name. So also it's a lot easier to put on a logo because you could have the lion and then like it just be a red lion and like, oh, that's cool. That's a dope logo. So yeah, man, that's where the name Red Lion comes from, and that's what it actually means.
No, that's dope. That might be the best story I've ever heard of how somebody came with their name. That's dope, man. I like that.
Yeah, most people.
I mean, how was Mo Flows?
How'd that come about?
Yeah.
Yep. It was random as shit. Like, so it was. It was like I vividly remember one day I was sitting in I had like a I guess you call it an office or something. Like it was a little room I had that I used to go to when I was to write and to do work, my homework and stuff. And I was sitting there and I was writing a poem, and I said, man, I have to come up with a name. Of course, everybody already called me Mo. And I was trying to think, you know, what rhymes with Mo. And I said, oh, Flow. Mo Flows. And that was it. And there you had it. And at first I was going to change it. See?
We are forever going to.
That's what happened. And at first I was going to change it. I was like, oh man, this is corny. I'm going to change it. But I never got around to changing it. And I just kept it. And then after a while I started to like it. I was like, man, this is me. This represents me. And I literally wrote it because I was trying to figure out a name to write at the end of the poem. Like, what am I going to call myself? That's where it came from. Nothing fancy. No spirits. Nothing like that.
And then you just
know what I'm saying?
Mo Flows.
I just added the Z. Yeah, then you got to add the Z. You can't be an S. Got to be a Z. Yeah, so
go urban plural.
Yeah.
The next time I see him in person, the next time we see him in person, Charles, I promise you, me and D were just gonna look at him and laugh.
That's what happened.
Because of the way that you just told this story.
It's true.
Yeah, no, it's the way you told it is just so comical. I'm just
it's okay, man.
I'm gonna hold this one in so I can bust out laughing out loud when I see
It's crazy because I tell this to people all the time before I really got to know Mo. I was a fan of his work. And look where he is now. And I'm like, that's family. This is family. When I say probably the only poet in this world that I listened or read a piece or listened to it on TikTok randomly. And I kept pausing and going back to my screen to write every word for word as a post on my Facebook and give him credit. didn't get to tag him. I was like, I really love this piece. Who is this person? And then he shows up on my platform.
Yeah. Random, right? No, I wouldn't call it random. We'll call it divine intervention. Divine intervention. That's what it was.
Oh man, I love you guys. We're going to dive into
all right
this deep dive because because it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. I can feel it. I have very great energy about it. I'm not gonna lie. I started work today. Shout out to New Beginnings. Cheers.
Blessings.
And I was in meetings all day, nonstop. I get home from work and I say, my phone goes off and says, you have a podcast interview scheduled with Charles at 8:00 p.m. and it's 7. I said, oh, wait. This will not be rescheduled. Oh, your time is up. My kid's on a timer.
Oh,
for school night.
It's about that time.
Yeah. So I will give you another hour for the sake of mommy. It's okay. So yeah, it was one of those things that just, I know you want that one, sweetie. Mommy's giving it to you now, okay? So yeah, it was one of these meetings that I made sure that it was intentional. I wanted to make sure I did not reschedule it because I wanted to touch on something that was very important that you posted in a post to the entire community. And thank you so kindly for this.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I saw it, as I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in the morning, and the first thing that I saw, I was in awe. So October 17th, at whatever time of day that I saw it in the morning, this beautiful long post from this lovely man on this podcast touched on so many points that was not only heartwarming, it was to the point where they were hating on me, and I had to write my comment about 5 times before it was allowing me to send the comment. I was upset. I was it kept saying, like, it wouldn't let me hit the post button. It just wouldn't. And it was deleting everything I was saying. I had to keep. I was like, why wouldn't it let me write from my personal page, but it let me write from DTL? And I was like, what the world? Like, why are you blocking me from sharing my expression to this man for this post? And I'm so glad. And it touched on so much that is going on in the poetry community that what I'm very, very happy about in the way that you did everything was you addressed it in a matter of from a place that it needed to be.
A concern.
Not from
It was
slander, a concern. It was a concern. It was deeply acknowledged. Like, you saw it. You're like, no, this has to come from a different angle, because the way that the world and the poets in the community are approaching it right now, it is a battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for this post. And I'll never forget that date on October 17th. Red Lion spoke to the entire world as a poet is supposed to. Because we touched on
EAL.
That's it. And that is the caption for the post. If you can't find it, everybody make sure you go and tap in. Go to his Instagram page and look for the caption that says heal. Black and white. You can't miss it. It is literally, you spoke so highly on, so much on, I love that you not only paid attention to the beautiful things that the poetry community has grown with, what they have brought into now versus then, the growth of all the poets and the platforms, and just everybody who played their part in being a community as much as they can possibly, or as much as they envision it possibly. And you honored that and you paid homage to that. But then you also made sure you tapped into the concern of where it is broken or breaking. And that was needed in such a way that people needed to hear what you said. There was something in there specifically that till this day, actually today, because before this podcast, I literally was on the phone with D. I called Mo, and I was listening to that post all over again. Because I wanted to make sure that exactly the reason why I set this interview touched on everything that I knew it was going to touch on. And I thoroughly listened to the whole thing. And there was something in there that today, what you said resonated with me, not only as a poet, but as a person. And like, for some reason, I needed to hear it again today. And that you said was, and I probably got the words, forgive me if I butcher it, But the talent that we use and we harness, and that we utilize, we harness for the rest of the world to assist the world in healing. Basically, in a nutshell, you said that we tend to forget that we need to utilize it for ourselves, and we hurt the ones around us.
Mm-hmm.
That, when I say spoke to me, it spoke to me a lot. And I was like, thank you, sir. I'm going to give you my, yes, thank you. Thank you for reminding me of what my gift is as a poet, as an artist, what I've created as a curator, as a business owner for the poetry community, and what I need to make sure that I still instill within myself as a human being. Because that is the part that has been disconnected from me.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. I'm gonna let y'all have the floor now.
Oh.
Because I know y'all got a lot of questions.
Well, no, I think my first question would be, I think Trish, you express what that post meant to you. And I know you gave a whole you gave us a lot in that particular post. I guess my question would be, what was it, what specific event, or was it a specific thing that inspired that post?
Okay, well, here goes the long explanation.
Okay.
I'll try to make it as short as possible.
Okay.
I said this before, that I've been doing poetry for about 13 years, going on 14. I remember when I first started, just to preface, I pray a lot, right? So the insight that I get, a lot of people would call it intuition. A lot of people would, call it different things. But prayer has really helped guide me through my journey as a poet. And one of the prayers that I made whenever I first started doing poetry was, God, I have sharpened this gift. I have done a really, good job, or I believe I've done a good job at stewarding it. Please don't put me around people who will take advantage of me because I'm soft. And if they do, if I were to get into a situation, they could utilize and pervert this gift. So, God, I went to my first open mic. I was 18. Went by myself, had my license, car, everything, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, I'm gonna go to some open mics. I went to some open mics, and the first open mic I went to, I got connected with these three poets in the Houston community, Ernest L. Beeson, Lyric, and Choice, the poet. And I love them to death because through them, I got to see all the beautiful parts of the community, what I believe. I saw community service. I saw toy drives and turkey drives. I saw us going out to feed the homeless, and I was like, "This is beautiful. This is where my heart is, right?" And I had a night of prayer again, and even though I could never really hear God audibly, I could feel His word in my spirit, and He said, Charles, there will be so many people who will seek to integrate you into what they're doing. And I need you to stay away from all of them. And I need you to not tattoo their names on you. And it's not because they've done anything evil, but I have something specific for you. And I need it to remain as pure as possible. So that means that all of these beautiful organizations that are going out to do all these really great things, I have to say no to all of them. And every just about like 99% of the artistic community here in Houston has reached out to me at some point wanting me to, hey man, we want you to join us. Hey, we want you to become a part of this. We want you to become part of that. And I have to say no to each and every one of them. And I do this for about 3-4 years, and I'm telling people no and no and no and everything like that. And I begin to see something. I begin to see those cracks in our community. And I begin to see beef, for lack of a better term, right? I begin to see, you know what I'm saying? People say, yeah, you don't need to be, going over there. You don't need to be doing this with this person. They're trash. Don't go over there. Like I'm seeing it and I'm just like, that's interesting. Okay, cool. Now, me not having anybody's name tattooed on me, of course, I'm going to go wherever I want to go because I have the liberty. And what I noticed is that a lot of poets who had their names attached to somebody else's name, a lot of times they were ostracized from certain portions of the community. And I began to wonder, well, why is that? Why are people being separated? And then, as I began to establish relationships, not just with this side, but with that side too, I'm like, oh, there were a lot of things that went, oh, somebody stole some money from you. Oh, this was a bad deal that you had. Oh, y'all were in a relationship and then, somebody cheated on somebody else. Oh, and this, that. So I'm hearing a whole bunch of different stories, and these are real, like personal stories that people are telling. You know what I'm saying? And this, and because of that, it has branched into the artistic community, not as, hey, this was my personal problem, but hey, this person is the problem. Because they've made that person the problem, now everything that's attached to that curator or that person, you know what I'm saying? They don't care about like all the details of it. All they're saying is, you know what? I trust this guy or this girl because they said this about him, and I'm not going to have anything to do with it because I'm listening to what they said. And because of that, it's kept a lot of relationships from happening and coming together, or a lot of collaborations that could really be beneficial for the community as a whole. And the thing is, I can never say who's right or who's wrong because I wasn't directly involved in any of those situations. But what I do know is this. I do know that if I have an issue with somebody, but I know that's, you know what I'm saying, my issue has nothing to do with somebody else, you know what I'm saying? I'm not going to slander you and tell other people that this is bad for you because I have an issue with you. One of my best friends, right here in the community, I'm not gonna say his name, just out of respect for privacy. But he told me something one day, because he's at odds with another curator here in the city, and he says, Red, if it's good for you and if it's good for your bottom line to go and do a show with him, then do it. I can't do a show with him because of A, B, C, and D, but if it's good for you, go do the show with him, right? I'm going to be honest with you and I'm going to tell you how I feel, but if this is good for you, then go do the show. And I thought that was one of the greatest forms of integrity I've ever seen.
Correct.
Because he was able to recognize that, man, I have an issue with this guy, but I know that for certain people, this is good for them, right? And I thought that was a beautiful gesture. But in branching off, right, because I've been flying to a lot of different places and a lot of different communities. I'm going around and I'm hearing that the same thing is happening amongst everybody. And it's not just Houston. It's also in Cali. It's also in Philly. It's also in Baltimore. It's also in New York. And I'm wondering to myself, well, dang, what is happening? You know what I'm saying? Why is it happening with everybody? And even now in this era, even now it's becoming more apparent. So to answer your question, the thing that sparked me to actually open my mouth and say it was actually a show that we were doing. It was a battle that we recently had. We have this thing in Houston called Bars Fest. And it's kind of like, poets head-to-head kind of thing. Very similar to, I guess for y'all, it would be similar to Apex, right?
Okay.
So we have Bars Fest here in Houston. And the guy that I was going against he's done so much for our community. He's got us into the improv, which is traditionally for comedians. But there was an era in Houston poetry where poets would sell out the improv once a month, and the improv is like a 500-seat venue. And he was a catalyst for that particular era of poetry. He's put on a lot of poets here in the city. He's given a lot of opportunities. He, however, does not have the best rapport with everybody in the city, for whatever reason, right? And like I said, I'm not going to dishonor anybody by like airing out anything, but like I'm just going to say that a lot of people didn't really, they don't really vibe with him. But there are some people who do, who love this guy and everything. So he and I had a battle, and he made a point in this battle to address the entire room, because in this room, everybody who I had relationship with, which is for me the entire Houston community, and him, which is like this, he has a pocket of people who support him. And he said in this battle, how does it feel to know that everybody in this room, that more people in this room came to see me lose than to see you win? And I was like, you know what? You're right. You're absolutely right. And that hurts my heart. It hurts my heart for two reasons. On one hand, what happened in the past that made that you did to them that made them like resent you so much? And on the other hand, why are they still holding on to this hurt?
Yeah, that part. Yeah.
So I can't completely say that, hey, it's all on this side or all on that side. It's on everybody. So when I put heal in the caption, I'm a firm believer that sometimes reconciliation is not a possible thing. And I get that. You won't always share the space with people. You won't always be there. You know what I'm saying? It's bad for your mental health to be with some people. But forgiveness allows us to alleviate. Forgiveness says that, I understood that you did this thing, but I'm going to let it go so that it can't hinder me. And that's what I feel like my friend who told me about the other curator that he didn't like. I believe that in and of itself was a form of forgiveness, because Red, I know I can't work with him, but if it's good for you, go. You know what I'm saying? And I believe that is a type or a form of forgiveness, right? And that opens the door, and it opens the door for people to be free, and it opens the door for conversations to happen. I will say that I did win that battle, and because I won the battle, this is why I posted the video, because I've been doing this for 13 years. I do have a name in my city. I do have a pool in my city. So I felt the need to say, you know what, I have the authority to say this now. Because that battle was not just a battle just for the sake of, having fun. It was a battle because it symbolizes something. So I believe that it symbolized that, hey, I know that if he were to come up here and say this, it would not be received. But me, who has not tattooed anybody's name on me, who is not, necessarily affiliated with any other poetry curation or community or anything like that, because I'm initially neutral ground. Right. Yeah. I can say this and it can be received in a better way. And then I remembered, oh, wait, I've done this in a couple other places. I actually do have connections with other people. There are actually really prominent poets who really mess with me. Let me put them in this post, not because of any like nonsense or mess. Now, I will say that some of the people that I did tag don't like each other in that particular post. But I will also say that there are some names in that post that it's like, I need you to see this because I need you to tell this because you have a voice in your particular community. And I want you to carry this, right? Because my job is not necessarily to change anything, because I'm not like, I've curated events, but what DTL is doing, what Voice and Power is doing, what Right About Now is doing, with you guys being the catalyst for pushing us forward in a lot of areas, y'all need to hear it, because you guys are our leaders. You understand? You guys are like, you know what I'm saying? You're our generals. And if y'all don't get this, if y'all don't understand this at the top, at the head level, then everything that you do is going to trickle down to everybody else. And you know what I'm saying? I know that you didn't ask for this, but now it becomes your responsibility, because you are a curator, because you are leading us. And it's my job to let you know and to be honest with you. Right.
Yeah. And I appreciate your honesty wholeheartedly, because the problem with a lot of everything, with what you addressed just now, this he say, she say, whisper down the lane gone wrong, outside of a coming to the person directly with your personal issue, instead of addressing it as your issue with the person that may or may not even know that you have an issue.
Right.
You are pulling in a community that is supposed to symbolize peace. And I say this all the time, that when it comes to that, keep it out the door. For the simple reason of this breakage, how this is collapsing, how people have this so-called beef with each other, unknown beef, people not being honest with themselves. So instead of being honest with themselves and bringing it to the people that they feel as though have hurt them in whatever way, I'm gonna go tell my homegirl, because you know what I mean, she be at the platform, or she be with this person in the poetry community. So maybe they could just be on my side, so they don't gotta come in there with me, because without me, you know, you wouldn't have the rest of my squad coming in there. No, stop, because we're not children. We're adults. We are adults. You are supposed to lead by example, especially those that are poets that are also parents. Let's start there, because there's a lot of creatives in this community that are parents that are just finding their way while being a mother or father, or any mother, father figure in any child's life. How can your child lead, follow you in your creative space and whatever action that you choose if you're moving in that childish manner? And it's just a matter of being honest with yourself, so that way you can seek some form of forgiveness. And forgiveness does not necessarily mean it is to forgive the other person. It may just be for you to forgive yourself so you can move forward. Because there's no reason why I can't say, they'll tell you, let me holler at you real quick. Let's talk about this for a second. That's it. It's no reason, like you said, at the top of the line. And it's crazy, because you've been in this for 13 years. 13. And I've only been doing this for going on 3. And already I get from the community, and I'm a air it out here, because a lot of people don't know that I know things. Do you know how many poets come to me and say, Trish, I've been warned not to come to your platform? As new poets, that are just getting their feet wet. I've been told about so and so. Oh, I heard about this. Oh, I heard your name was really. Really? I don't see my phone ringing. I don't see nobody in my DMs contacting me directly with whatever issue they have. Everybody know it's public knowledge. My name been trying to be slandered and dragged through the mud on social media. Do it make me stop doing what I'm doing? Absolutely not. Because one monkey don't stop the show. I'm not going to take away something that I found in providing to people that need it. Like you said, if it only touched one person. Mo would tell you, my last show recently, I haven't hosted in 2 years. Haven't hosted my own show in 2 years. Hosted my show, and I didn't care. And I told them in their audience, I didn't care if it's 3 people in here. I'm going to have my show. And it not because of how many people was in that room. It ended up, as tired as I was, I'm thinking small. It's a small group. They said, no, it was intimate and it was needed. Do you know how many poets hit me up that same night and said, damn, I should have came to DTL? Because they missed what was there. They missed what needed to be heard because of worried about the popularity contest.
Well, I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier, that it's just remembering that you're a person before you're a poet. Right?
Correct.
So you shouldn't be acting or portraying yourself any differently as a poet than you would as a person. And for me personally, when I go into situations, I'm going into situations as as Mo, right? My stage name is Moflo, but I'm going into it as Mo, right? So if it comes to certain situations, for me, it's two things. About one, gaining understanding, and how do I protect my peace, and at the same time share that same type of energy with my environment, right? Whereas I'm never going into a situation, and I don't care what you did or what you said, right? I'm not coming at you in no negative way, because I believe that, like Charles said it. I believe this. We, in the world of art, we are the protectors of the peace, right? That's what poetry's about. Peace. When you think about poetry, you don't think about rah rah rah. When you think about poetry, you think about ooh, I'm coming to vibe, like, you know what I'm saying? So how are we bringing this other energy in there? And if you're feeling that negative energy, you expect to come into the poetry space to figure it out, to gain some understanding, to vibe out with like-minded people, not the opposite, not the opposite. You know, there's we could say it, right? It's about egos. There's too many egos.
It is, and you're weaponizing your pen.
Because people are looking at poetry about, like, they're it seems like, I can't speak for anybody's mind. I'm just saying what it looks like from outside looking in. When I'm looking at it, it seems like people are coming at this, coming in at poetry about being the best. And when you realize that there's no such thing as being the best poet, right? Because
there's no
your
poet
voice
better than another poet.
Your voice isn't for every. A poet's voice, each poet's voice is for somebody.
Correct.
Period. Right. And so when you come into aspect like, hey, I want to get better as a poet because I want to have a larger impact and inspire people in a positive way, and you let go of this whole, I got to be better than this person, I got to be better than that person, I think it changes the environment. What I'm starting to see is poets wanting to out poet poets, and it's like, I get it. Like, if you're in a slam contest, okay, get it. That's you having fun, you trying to strategize how to win and get it outside. But outside of that, right? Outside of that field, or that, those type of competitions that people supposed to be having in fun, we shouldn't be bringing that negative energy into this space. Charles, you said that you look at poetry as the foundation, and so with poetry being the foundation, we can't be bringing this negativity into the space, man. I don't know. I think maybe there's a lack of leadership. Maybe because there's no structure in the poetry world. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I'm just throwing some stuff out there. Those are just some things I see.
And I love the way that the caption on that post was, it literally is just heal, and it literally needs to be written as exactly how it was written, because there are several things happening in the community with it toppling over. There's identity crisis, self-identity crisis, people weaponizing their pen, competing with one another to be the best, being upset because they aren't the best or seen as the best, just what's the imposter syndrome. There's so much. I can go down a list of things. But again, those are personal things within you that you have not dealt with, that you think poetry is your answer to dealing with them. Somebody else's poetry may speak to you in a way that you need to heal. So you can identify things that you may not recognize yourself. So I firmly I believe that there's some things that Mo might say that might sit with me like, dang, no, bro, I didn't really think about that. You know what? I needed to hear that.
Yeah.
But it should never be in a way of all of this anger and animosity and screaming at our inner child, but not dealing with our shit, and blaming other people for not dealing with our own shit, and thinking and calling ourselves creative. Come on. Like, let's be real.
Yeah, man.
That's just what it is.
I got a question. You brought up a point there, Trish, that brought up another question I got a question for you.
What?
I keep flipping between Charles and Red Line. I don't. Does it matter which one I call
They are
you?
one and the same.
One and the same. Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure.
AJ McQueen said, "You can call me any name as long as you don't call me out my name."
There you go. That part. Yeah. All right. So, kind of staying on topic, kind of getting a little bit out of the topic that we're talking about a little bit. But a lot of times you hear that poetry can be very based in trauma, rooted in trauma, right? What do you think about that?
We talked about this, Mo.
I know. I wanted to get his opinion. What do you think about that?
A lot of poetry is rooted in trauma. I think, who was that? Misspoken poet, Jayla, had a post. And she had this shirt that I'm going to butcher it because I don't remember it verbatim, but it said something to the extent of, what we're really doing on stage is crying out, right? And people will give us snaps and plays. I've always seen poetry as a tool and as a vehicle, right? So you can use it as a tool and a vehicle for whatever purpose you want to use it for, right? Trauma, it's such a strange thing because on one hand, me telling you my experience and me being alive to tell you my experience is powerful. Because as much as I wanted to die, I'm telling you, I'm still telling you, I'm still talking.
Oh my God, I love that. Oh my God, what you just said. Oh my God, sorry. I had to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's still a powerful gesture, even in the midst of a traumatic experience, to still get up there and do poetry. However, a lot of times people will use poetry to, I guess, the best way I can put it is like numb. Right. There are a lot of my friends, who are smokers and everything. Right. And, I don't have anything against smoking or anything, but I noticed that a lot of my friends who do smoke, they use it not necessarily as a tool to, like, you know what I'm saying? That's necessarily for the purposes of healing, but they use it as recreation. And some of that recreation is, again, to mask, right? And a lot of that is masking the trauma. So I see people doing that with poetry a lot, where it's like, we're gonna inhale, we're gonna like take in this issue and everything, but all we're doing is like numbing it. We're not dealing with it, right?
Yeah.
So because we're not dealing with it, it's like smoking a blunt, man. You know what I'm saying? Hey, the blunt is good right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We good, but we ain't really dealing with the issue. We're just covering it up with something, right? So
that's a great analogy.
Yeah. Until you actually deal with it, right? And that might look like going to therapy. That might look like, hey, man, I need to get some friends, you know what I'm saying? And I need to talk because I'm having a hard time. That might look like maybe you just need to go to the beach and put your feet in the water. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, until you deal with that issue and confront that issue, one of y'all mentioned the inner child, right? Until you go back and give that inner child a chance to actually have fun, to grow, you know what I'm saying? To be itself, then you're not really dealing with the issue. You're just masking it and masking it and masking it. Jay Ivy once said that if you don't deal with your emotions, eventually your emotions will deal with you. And they will deal with you at the worst time.
Yep.
So, you throughout the course of this podcast, through the interview, you've named a number of poets that you use as to get your point across about the different things we've been talking about, and it made me think about who are your favorite poets? Who are your favorite poets?
Oh my God! Don't get me to doing that. There are so many.
I know. You know what? I honestly hate when people ask me that question. So, because I'm like, man, we might feel different. He might feel different. I know for me, I'm a poet, but I'm also a poet's poet. So I love listening to poets as well. And there's so many poets that I like. It's really hard for me when people ask that question. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to forget somebody. I like so many. So I guess let me change my question. Just when I ask that question, what poets pop in your mind? Not saying who you think is best, better, or anything like that. Just
who do you admire?
There you go. Who do you admire? I like that one.
Okay, well,
that's the way. I like that, Trish. Thank you.
You see that assist? You see that assist, bro?
Yeah, assist, the alley-oop.
That's funny. I'm gonna give you a couple, but I will give you my favorite poet.
Okay.
My favorite spoken word artist currently, his name is Carvins Lasant. Carvins,
send it to me.
Send you Carvins. So Carvins doesn't actively do poetry right now. He's a Broadway actor now.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Yeah, he's done like a lot of Hamilton. Plays in New York.
He's the Broadway actor. That's the best way to say it. Yep.
Yeah. Carvins was a part of a collective called the Strivers Row. You know what I'm saying? When he was younger, this is composed of poets named Miles Hodges, Jasmine Mans, Alicia Nicole Harris. I am missing somebody, and Chris Webb. No, not Chris Webb. Joshua Bennett. And I spent a lot of time listening to Carvins Lasant because I really resonated with the way he delivered poetry. Because his way of delivering poetry was so piercing and powerful. And I was like, I really like this. So I get a lot of my core mannerisms from him, I would say. And then eventually I developed my own voice. But Carvins is a name that immediately jumps out. I will say Jasmine Mans too. She's just so haunting. When she's delivering poetry.
We'll say
I'm so to her.
I was so I'm so bad with names. Forgive me. Bless you. I'm so glad you're blessed for the rest of the day because I know there's a third somewhere. Right. I was at shout out to J Rose and the Legends event second, and I recording the red carpet event. Out of everybody, I missed Jasmine Mans.
Her.
I love her work. I love her work, and I sat and spoke for a majority of the time with her, an executive assistant. And in person that night, and I was so upset with myself. I was like, I love her work. And I had to go back and look at, because I commented on one of her videos, especially as a person who deals with film. Beautiful. The visuals are immaculate. I love her work. Top tier. She's one of my top 5, and I don't have top 5s, but she's one of my top.
It's like she top 5 and she ain't 5. There are so many. I would say Obi West is a cheat code. God, he's such a cheat code, and I hate that he's that good. I hate that he's that good so much, but man, love Obi. Chakra is really dope. Let me see. It's so many good ones, man. Jeez, it's a lot. Yeah, man. Anybody from Strivers Row, anybody from P4CM. I'm sorry, not P4CM, but the PIA tour. Apprentice. It's a lot. It's a lot. Brandon.
Going from your favorite poet. Oh, sorry. Going from your favorite poets, like what is the best advice that a mentor has ever gave you?
So the best advice that I ever got was the initial advice that I got from a poet here in Houston. Her name is Kathy McGibbon. She's also a sex trafficking survivor, and she's a human trafficking advocate. The best advice that she ever gave me was people need to know what you're talking about within the first 7 to 10 seconds of the poem.
Right.
Because if they don't know, you could possibly lose them, especially in a non-poetry crowd. You know what I'm saying, where people don't have an ear for poetry already. So if you're doing a poem and it's so layered and intricate and beautiful, right? People can get lost in how beautiful your language is and miss the message completely. So make sure that people know what you're talking about as soon as you can. The other advice I got was from a young man named Joe. And Joe said, make sure that whenever you're giving this poem, like you were speaking as if you were in the scene, right? So like if I'm doing a poem and I'm talking about depression, how does depression feel? Does it feel cold? Right. So like that's like how does the emotion feel? And I want that tone to come out of you. I want your tone to be cold. I want you to set this scene like a really good book, right? There's a rising action, there's a climax, there's a falling action, there's a resolution, right? So that's how that's probably those are two probably the best bits of advice that I've ever gotten. And that was like from early on whenever I first started like really diving into poetry.
Yeah. No, that's so dope, because I remember when I first started writing, or when I first started like being, like I said, being more intentional with it. I think as a writer, I write with deep thought, right? And so my writing comes out, but I quickly realized that although that's good on paper, because on paper you have time to reread the line, download what you're reading, and gather what I'm saying. But that didn't always translate well on stage, because I could be on stage and I could have, I could have the wordplay here and there in the nice flow, but if it's too layered and the audience isn't how'd you say, if the audience doesn't have a poet's ear, right, then they're gonna miss everything you're saying. And so I had to learn that. So you brought a good point. I had to learn that, okay, it's important for me to tell my story, but it's also important for me to make sure I understand my audience. Right. Because even as an educator, because, I teach, I've been an educator all my life too. And as an educator, I had to learn that as well. Right. It doesn't matter what the intellect you have. You can have all the intellect in the world here. If you can't say in a way that somebody can understand it, you might as well not have it. Like nobody's going to understand what you're talking about. And I think as a poet, you brought that point of like, you got to be able to do that, man. You have to be able to do that. You can't get so caught up in yourself and say, no, I'm gonna say this, and they need to figure it out. Well, okay, good luck with that. Good luck with that. So yeah, you got to know your audience, man. You got to know your audience. Now, if you're in a room full of poets, lay it on thick. They'll grasp it. But if you so that good point, man. Good point.
Yeah, Ezekiel.
Definitely.
Yeah, Ezekiel said
go ahead.
Yeah, Ezekiel said that you are a messenger in charge of a message. Ezekiel is another poet. You are a messenger in charge of delivering a message. If you do not deliver the message, you have not done your job. So you have to make sure that your message is delivered. So.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I feel like when it comes to us as artists, and like you said, with sharing our experiences through our work, sharing our, whether it be trauma, whether it be happy moments. It's funny because this aligns with my post that's going up tomorrow. So, because I just did a piece, and recorded it. But it literally, this aligns with somebody once said to me, don't be afraid to tell your story because it might change somebody's life.
Yeah.
No matter how that looks, whether it be through poetry, and pain and everything. And I'll share this even on this podcast, because this will get posted in about 24, 48 hours after that post goes up. But the piece that I ended up writing was, I was asked, do I have any poetry in the form of happiness? And another person had asked, when I came into the poetry realm, do you really, and I say this in the poem, do I want the world to see and witness me in such negativity first, as a first impression? And I said to myself, and I laughed at both situations, both statements. I laughed because, one, I don't believe anybody in this world is allowed to dictate how you express your pain. That's just what it is, whether it be trauma or whatever the case may be. Two, if you really are a fan of my work, a lot of my poetry is not pain. It's not. You're only hearing the pain. You're only paying attention to the pain. You're only paying attention to the trauma. Because it's louder. It's louder than any of the happy or lovable ones. It's louder than that. Why? Because somewhere deep down, whatever I presented to you in those moments, whatever you chose to listen to, and whatever you're listening as far as me crying out in my realm of pain and screaming to the world to hear at the top of my lungs, there is something in you that needed to hear it. So no, I don't have a theme for my poetry. It's my poetry. That's it.
She preaching to somebody.
Yeah.
She need to offer.
Yeah. Pass the plate around.
You know what I'm
saying? Listen. At the end of the day, and it really, when I wrote the piece, in the moment that I wrote it, because Dee will tell you all the time, my light bulb will go off. My best friend for years, I've been friends with her for almost 28 years, almost just about. Never witnessed me writing a poem in person. And I'm sitting in her living room. We're watching TV, and randomly I go like this. Okay. And she's like, "What did you just do?" And I was like, "Oh, I was writing a poem. You want to hear it?" She was like, wait. I always lose D. What's going on? I don't know.
Oh,
there she
go.
It'll kick back in. It says, "All right, recorded failed." But yeah, literally, she's like, she'd never witnessed the way my light bulb goes off. Just a word. It could be as simple as a word from a movie or whatever, a conversation that we're having right now, and it's like, I gotta write that. I gotta write that. Why is that you in here twice?
Why you
What's
got
going
two?
on?
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
Oh no.
How you do that?
I don't know what happened. It just asked me to join again.
But there we go. But at the end of the day, it was just like how whatever I write about is going to touch somebody, like you said, and it's piggies all the way back to why you write. This takes it all the way back to the beginning of this podcast. Some way, somehow, my piece will touch even just one person in this room. Shout out to Angie from New York. I love Angie to death. Angie, I'm going to share this personal conversation I had with her, said to me being a curator, me being a business owner, me being a poet, I want you to stop playing with your passion. And I was like, huh? She said, I need you to know who the fuck you are. And I say that, she was like, because you might open up DTL and do a piece. I'm going to just spit a piece real quick, y'all. I'm going to be the sacrificial lamb, blah, 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 as I always do. And she's like, but you don't realize how much power is in what you say. She said, and until you stop playing is when I know you got my message. And I was like, ooh. And after that, I did my first piece without my phone. In Scranton, PA. And I was like, okay.
It was freeing, wasn't it?
It was, but it's different from coming and doing like scripts from films to doing full monologues. And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
I don't know. Y'all, it's so much, because when I'm doing business, and I love y'all. Y'all have it. I'm proud of y'all. Y'all had that in a nutshell, memorizing y'all stuff, because the way this brain works.
I'm fairly certain our brains work the same. So I'm dyslexic. So memorization is extremely difficult for me to do. Yeah. So I mean, we're all in the same boat, sis.
Yeah.
I'm not alone. Thank you.
Yeah, I have to be very intentional about memorizing, and so what I think a lot of people don't realize, like memorizing is literally a motor skill. It's a skill, maybe not a motor skill. It's a skill though, like that can be. You could teach yourself how to memorize better, right?
Right.
The more you do it, the better you become at it.
Right.
And the less you do it, the less. Because I've noticed, like if I go a long time without memorizing something, and then I try to, it takes me a while.
Yeah.
But it's just like using a muscle to build it up.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
I
Exactly. You
think
could
for
build
you know
that
how
muscle.
we always talk about the different techniques as to how to memorize certain your poetry. Like I've heard so many poets say like, okay, record yourself or do this and do that. I don't know what it was for me, but I end up realizing because like as a content and film creator, I have to do it as if I'm creating film in order for me to memorize it.
Yeah.
It's the only way it sticks.
Mm.
It's if I'm rehearsing with someone for a scene because I've been so in tune with that realm. So that's the only way it registers to me in that way.
Mm. Yeah.
That's good, man.
Yeah, it's different for everybody. I've heard all different types of techniques. For me, I have to write it a bunch of times, which gets hard, right? Because sometimes the poem
Wait, like I'm writing, my name 100 times because I'm in detention.
Yep. Yep.
So it wasn't a punishment after all.
Yeah.
That is
I write that,
madness, bro.
yeah, I write that poem over and over and over and over, and then after I write it a couple times, then I get into the like doing it off paper. But I'll write it over and over and over.
I'm curious how many notebooks you have.
Oh yeah,
that's a lot.
I go through a lot of paper. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I understand. I come from the era where you recorded on the radio, on the cassette, and then to learn the song, you had to rewind it, play it back, rewind it, play it back. So you learn the song. So I only performed once on one platform on DTL for the first time. So but I'm starting to try to learn my pieces. So I noticed that what I have to do is record it audio and then keep listening to it, play it back, listening. But while I'm recording, I'm also remembering it. That way, by the time I'm finished recording, I probably pretty much know it.
So yeah, I do the recording thing, but I do the recording thing kind of like after I already have it halfway memorized. Like if I have it like about halfway memorized, then I'll do the recording thing, right? But if I don't already have it kind of memorized, recording doesn't work. I'm a visual learner, right? So another thing I'll do is I will say the poem in the mirror. And so now when I'm saying it, I remember what I look like when I'm getting ready to say the words. So as I'm on the stage, I have like if I get ready to get caught up, I kind of could see myself in the mirror, and it kind of helps me. And that's another reason why I write it down, because the other thing that'll pop in my head is what the words look like on the paper.
That happens to me as well.
Mind. Yeah, I can see in my mind what word is going to come next. Yeah, so
Charles,
I'm a visual learner.
With all of us sharing our different methods, what would you say is the best method for you in memorizing your work, especially being dyslexic?
So
because there are a lot of poets that I know that are dyslexic.
Yeah. So there are two things that I keep in mind. Maya Angelou has a quote. Maya said that people may never remember what you say, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And I use that quote as I use that quote to sort of give myself a plane to memorize on, because whenever I'm doing poems, I practice them full out regardless of if they're finished or not. And I do that because one thing that I learned about myself is that I don't remember the words all the time, but I remember the emotions behind the words. And even in times of me memorizing, I edit and memorize at the same time, because it's like, oh, wait a minute. I wanted it to say this, but this feels more natural. So let me change this word right here. If I need to memorize something like extremely quick, I might record it and then re-listen to it over and over again if I have to memorize it quick. But if I want to get if I want to present the poem fully, I'm going to take my time. I'm going to practice it full out every single time. And it's like, okay, this feels more natural. Let me take this out. This sounds really pretty, but this is better. So let me take that out and let me, do that, because I want the poem to feel as natural as possible. And this is the best way that I have memorizing it. There are some times where, a lot of singers, they'll be trying to they don't get the words, they get the melody first. So that's kind of how it works in my brain. It's like, I'll go and then all of a sudden I'll forget the words and I'll be like, and then I find the line that I remembered and everything. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, what the hell did I forget? And then I look back. It's like, see, I knew that's what it was. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how it is. Now, that's a longer process, but I retain it and I hold the poem a lot better that way. So, yeah.
That's a very talented thing. That is very talented. Because a lot of it's a challenging thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't like know how to properly navigate it. So the fact that you found your way in that process, and the reason why I wanted you to share that, because there's so many poets that have the same issue that I've heard. Like they'll always express like, I'm dyslexic. I'm like, whoa. And for me, for just my own, educational purposes, is like, how does that work? How do you process that? How do you navigate that? How do you find your way to assist when still being being a poet and wanting to create the way that you want to create like everybody else? I definitely shout out to all of you that don't allow any type of disability or anything to hinder who you are.
Yeah.
It's like, and I feel like, and I'll say this all the time, it's not a matter of like discrimination or anything like that. Like, it's just that I always look at people that have bigger challenges than the average human being are always much more intelligent in a way, because they have to take on those powerful challenges where it's like, we got it easy a little bit, if that makes sense. Am I making sense? Yeah. I ain't trying to disrespect nobody.
No, it
is. To me, it's like it literally is. It's like you guys are literally heroes. You're leaders, because it takes a lot. It takes a lot of brain power. It takes a lot of everything across the board. But Charles, I want to thank you so much for coming on this podcast. This was great. I don't know about y'all, but I took a lot from this. And I can't wait to share with the world and just the community the more in-depth conversation that we had regarding the challenges, the ups and downs, you as an artist, you as a poet, some things that you've encountered personally in the realm of artistry, and just overall just seeing it from different perspectives. There are a lot of things in this episode that I know we've touched on multiple episodes, and it's to me it is a repeated process, because sometimes people just have to hear it over and over again and some of the points. And I think the main goal with our podcast too is just to ensure that people not only get to experience who you are as artists behind the pen, because we shine light on the words that we share with the world, but nobody shines light on the person. So that is the main goal when it comes to our podcast. This is why I invite people to come in, because you are more than just the poet that hits the stage. There is a reason why this person is this gifted. There is a reason why their words are touching so many souls. There is a reason. Who is this person? And I want people to actually recognize who you are as an individual. So thank you so much for,
and we see you.
Definitely see you. I see everybody that comes in, and as busy as I might be at times, I try my best to respond. I responded to you several times, like, thanks for sharing. Oh my God, thank you. And then I was like, no, I need you here on this podcast, because I see you like here, like now. So thank you so much for, giving us this opportunity. And yes, I'm going to say it, giving us this opportunity, not us giving you the opportunity, giving us the opportunity to know who you are as an artist, as a poet, and just as a person who actually shows a genuine concern for the community that he has lived in for 13 years. So thank you so much for joining us on this podcast, and I can't wait to share it.
And for all those who don't know who you are, where can they find you?
Oh, wow. That's gross. I hate plugging. Before I do, because I'm going to forget this later on. Thank you, guys. It's very easy to support people who you can tell are genuine. It's not a hard thing to say, I want to get behind that. Whenever you can tell. And based off of your name, Trish, I don't know what other people have said, but the people in my circle, whenever they speak of your platform, they have nothing but praise for it. And I know these people, on a personal level, and I trust them, and I can see why they love you so deeply. Okay. So whoever is not loving
thank you
you,
to all your people.
yeah. So whoever is not loving you, I would encourage them to heal, or do whatever they need to do. You know what I'm saying? I would encourage them to like just really take a look at the big picture, and just take a look at themselves. One thing that I've learned is that I can look through my perspective, that person's perspective, and that person's perspective, and I still won't have the full understanding of why people think the way that they do. But as far as you guys, Mo, Divine, Trish, thank y'all for one, providing a platform for artists to come on and not to be artists and everything, right? But thank you for genuinely loving people. Love is very identifiable if you are familiar with love. So thank you for loving us, and we appreciate you. You can find me at Red Lion Poetry. That's red the color, lion the animal, poetry the art, on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. I have a website. It's Red Lion Poetry there too. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's been great. It's been great. I definitely enjoyed the conversation. Enjoyed the insight. You dropped a number of gems. So I definitely appreciate it, man. It's been good. So thank you.
We got to do this again. We need a part 2 because I need to hear more. We got to dive deep.
Listen, the way that we dove into this is probably the longest one that we've done. This is an hour and a half. So this, yes, I literally, that's why I was like, oh, I got to cut this short. I know I do. But I might even drop it in like a 2-part, or I will just drop the whole thing on YouTube because it's, believe it or not, it'll probably just come out tomorrow. Thank you so much. Nobody go anywhere for a second. I'm going to hit the end button, but thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. It's been a pleasure. I deeply appreciate you. And this is not the last I've seen of you. Trust and believe. I know that.
Absolutely.
I know that. So.
All right now. Peace.
Let's see.